Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Sanders, Deputy Commissioner of Workforce and Human Services. The Department of Family and Support Services Workforce Services RFP will now begin. The release date for our RFPs will be May 3rd, 2021. Due date, June 17, 2021. I'll now pass it to my colleague, Thomas Moles, for housekeeping.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending this webinar. My name is Thomas Mose. I help with technical assistance on all the Department of Family and Support Service RFP webinars. So I'm glad to join you today. I just want to let you know that due to the volume of participants, we have over 80 that have signed up and that are attending right now. Everyone has been placed on mute. To get your questions submitted, we'd like you to type them in the question box on your dashboard to your right, and we'll respond to the questions after going through all the slides. And just if you have any technical issues, please use the question box to notify us. Generally, it has to do with how you're listening on the computer, or if you're calling in today, and depending on how you need to listen. So right now I see with over 81 attendees that almost all of you are using your computer audio. It looks like you this is being broadcast to you, so thank you for joining us. And with that, we'll pass it back to the team to go over the rest of the slides. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'll start just to go over our agenda. We'll do welcome and introductions. I've already introduced myself. My colleagues will introduce themselves as we, real quick. We'll go through the overview, the mission and the priorities of this RFP, talk about our strategic framework, give a little background of our workforce division. We want to talk about the target population for the RFPs we are presenting, give a programmatic overview for each of the 4 RFPs, the Community Reentry and Support Centers Program, the Employment Preparation and Placement Program, the Industry-Specific Job Training Program, as well as the Transitional Jobs Program. Then we'll go over the timeline for submission, and we'll talk about any technical assistance for applications and how that e-procurement process works. And we'll leave some space for questions at the end. Next slide. So again, my name is Mark Sanders. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Workforce and Human Services. I'm joined by my colleague, Alan Plasek.
Hello, everybody. My name's Alan Plasek. I am a agency liaison and program coordinator in the Workforce Division.
Also joined by my colleague, Juan Cruz. It looks like Juan's microphone may be out. We also have Julia Talbot on the line.
Hi, I'm Julia Talbot. I am the person that you talked to about e-procurement problems, and will be managing the RFP process from a non-programmatic standpoint. I'll be presenting at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
All right. So DFSS, mission and priorities. Our mission, working with community partners, we connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. Our priorities: to deliver and support high-quality, innovative, and comprehensive services that empower clients to thrive, collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, and public officials on programs and policies that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change. We inform the public of resources available to them through DFSS and its community partners, and we also steward DFSS's resources responsibly and effectively. Next slide. the Chicago DFSS has several divisions. We have 7 listed here: Children's Services, Division on Domestic Violence, Homeless Services, Youth Services, Senior Services, and Human Services. Today's conversation will be focused on our workforce services. Next slide. As you may know, DFSS launched phase 1 of the strategic framework back in early 2016. And the goal was to transition our department to a more outcome-oriented and data-driven approach for delivering services. At its heart, the strategic framework is about placing a greater focus on the quality of services and client progress outcomes, as opposed to the number of clients or units of services we deliver. The first phase of the strategic framework was internal, and it focused on setting priorities and outcome goals and making them a core part of our department's work. In 2018, we moved to the second phase of the strategic framework, which is about incorporating the strategic framework into our contracting and engaging the service provider community to improve those outcomes. The large majority of DFSS's work is achieved through partnerships with service providers in the community. So unless our outcome goals are embedded in our partnerships, we won't be able to achieve these results. So we have developed our RFPs and our contracts in ways that are more focused on these outcome goals. We are now in phase 3, performance improvement, and we are working to implement a performance improvement system to prioritize and execute efforts and improve results, and developing into phase 4, system coordination to improve service, matching, and referral and linking data to improve client experiences and outcomes. All of this is with the ultimate goal of achieving better results for vulnerable Chicagoans. Next slide, please. At DFSS, our RFPs are viewed as critical strategic tools. You will see our strategic contracting work reflected in our RFPs, our selection criteria, as well as the application questions for the CDGA across DFSS. We have continued to refine our RFPs and contracts, and we did this to ensure that outcomes continue to be at the center of our work. We developed a shared understanding of priorities for how we will track improvement, and we want to support two-way communication between DFSS and our delegates about best practices, high-quality services, and the needs of those we serve. We have continued to focus on more outcome goals and less on those activities, as I've mentioned before. And so we wanted to make sure that the selection criteria that we'll go over is a reflection of our priorities. And so by asking these questions in this way that's a reflection of our priorities, the questions will give us a better, more specific information to help guide those funding decisions. So overall, we want to make sure that we're focused on creating a trauma-informed system of care. We want to improve upon our relationship building, both between the department and our delegates, and then amongst our delegates. We want to maintain a respect for cultural competence and non-discriminatory practices, and we want to continue being flexible and delivering participant-driven programs and strength-based services in ways that will help clients grow, develop, and thrive. Next slide. DFSS RFPs articulate what we want to achieve together, rather than focusing alone on activities. We want to keep that target on our outcome goals. What are we trying to achieve? And then also we want to make sure we're clear about who we want to achieve it for. We also want to maintain a focus on our context, as well as the program requirements that are included in our RFPs. And so the most important programmatic activities, we want to make sure that those are clearly outlined in the RFPs, and that we understand where we are today for our priorities. And so we review what the current state of the workforce development landscape is, and then we've identified what our priorities are on how we want to move forward. Then finally, performance measures. how we will measure success and progress against our outcome goals, and what we'll do to work together to achieve these goals. So again, outcomes front and center, and then everything else is in support of achieving those outcomes. Next slide. So for our selection criteria, we want to be clear that our selection criteria focuses on, again, those results and best practices. So we'll look at the strength of the proposed program, whether or not the applicant is delivering services appropriate to achieving the desired outcomes. We want to make sure the performance management is clear and in place, making sure the applicant has a strong history of past performance and is capable of collecting and using data to manage future performance. We want to make sure the organizational capacity is there. Applicant must demonstrate it has the appropriate staff, systems, processes, and other organizational capabilities to execute the work, and it reflects the diversity of the community it serves. We want to make sure the costs are reasonable and the budget is justified in a way where delegates are leveraging available funds. Applicants in this aspect are demonstrating that they are fiscally sound with reasonable proposed costs, and they have the capacity to leverage non-city funding for the program. As you all know, our budgets are reimbursement only, and so we want to make sure that the program is able to function until we're able to reimburse. Some key changes we want to highlight for this year's application process. This year, based on application and evaluator survey feedback, we have focused on more clearly describing program expectations and priorities for improvement. Additionally, given events over the past year, we have reviewed all of our RFPs to integrate a greater focus on equity and lessons learned about service delivery during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. Now, quick overview of the background information for our Workforce Services Division. The DFSS Workforce Services Division designates resources for the coordination of workforce services that meet the unique needs of disadvantaged Chicago residents. Our division is increasingly applying that equitable, trauma-informed approach to delivering workforce services at the neighborhood level to advance strong and supportive communities. We also want to focus on reentry and career navigation, supportive services, and temporary subsidized jobs that are integrated with work-based learning experiences so that our most vulnerable residents can have the opportunity to thrive. And so when DFSS, our workforce division, speaks of most vulnerable residents, we're thinking about individuals who are low income that may be at risk of homelessness. Thinking about residents whose limited English proficiency restricts their access to opportunity. Traditionally, we call them ESL, English language learners, or English as a second language. Finally, we also want to focus on prioritizing returning residents, those who have an arrest or conviction record, those who have been recently released from jail or prison. Those are our priorities. We want to service low to moderate income individuals with a specific focus on those who are at risk of homelessness, those with limited English proficiency, as well as returning residents. Next slide. So we referenced equity previously, and here are some of our guiding principles. According to Policy Link, equity is just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential, unlocking the promise of the nation by unleashing the promise in us all. And so in thinking about providing our services, we want to approach it with this frame in mind: just and fair inclusion into our society. We also want to maintain a focus on trauma and trauma-informed care. A trauma-informed care approach strives to understand the whole of an individual who is seeking services. And so the intention of trauma-informed service delivery is not to treat symptoms or issues related to generational poverty, community gun violence, sexual, physical, or emotional abuse, or any other form of trauma, but rather we want to provide support services in a way that is accessible and appropriate to those who may have experienced trauma. We realize that the direct impact that trauma may have on people and communities, and we understand that equitable access to services is oftentimes impacted by the trauma people experience. And so we want to think about, and we're continuously thinking about ways that we can respond as a department by changing policies, improving procedures and practices to minimize those barriers. Next slide. All right. So.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes. All right. Well, Juan is back, and so he will take on this next slide. Thank you.
Yes, hi. This is Juan Cruz, Workforce Service Coordinator. Thank you all for joining us. We want to start off with just saying that we're going to have performance-based contracts for our 2022 contract year. So with our performance-based contracts, the workforce divisions will return to that in 2022. Each delegate agency will be reimbursed at the following payment points. We have enrollment, 30-day retention, priority population, and 90-day retention. The payments per individual served is calculated based on the number of people your agency plan to serve. And here we have some metrics of the payment points. Again, the big notice here is right now we're on a line item reimbursement basis. We're switching to the performance-based contract in 2022. Again, here's an example at the bottom. If your agency receives a $50,000 contract and they plan to enroll 30 people, they would get approximately $1,033 per individual they enroll. And we break down the calculations this way. So again, we have 4 payment points. It's a reimbursement-based contract on a performance base. And so that's the big difference between this year and next year. Next slide. Guess we'll go back to you, Mark.
No, I think this one's me, Juan.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so hi, everybody. Again, this is Alan Plasek, Program Coordinator with the Workforce Division. Okay, this very important slide, target population. As you can see, we want to provide individuals who have significant barriers to employment, who may be unemployed or underemployed, who have limited work skills, and they must be 18 years of age, City of Chicago resident, low to moderate income, and authorized to work in the United States. And here is something very, very critical, very important for the 2022 RFP. Individuals must be part of the homeless, they must be a homeless individual or at risk of homelessness. They must have limited English proficiency, and they must be a returning citizen. These are the target populations that we want agencies to target during your recruitment and outreach. And we are asking that 75% of your enrollees fit this profile. We also want to prioritize workforce services to veterans and individuals with disabilities who belong to one of those priority populations, and of course meet age and income eligibility requirements. The asterisk at the bottom of this slide indicates the definition between low to moderate income individuals. They must have a family income between 50% and 80% of the HUD area median income. Okay, Tom, next slide. Okay, target population. So I'm not going to read this whole paragraph to you, but briefly, to support equitable recovery from the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to prioritize certain community areas. These areas were identified on the city's COVID vulnerability index, and they use metrics to identify specific communities that are most burdened by COVID during the pandemic and have been previously identified as areas that will benefit from public safety, education, and human service investments. So as you can see, here are those particular community areas. As you can see, it's Auburn Gresham, Austin, Bronzeville, Chicago Lawn, East Garfield Park, Englewood, Gage Park, Greater Grand Crossing, Hummel Park, New City, North Lawndale, Roselawn, West Englewood, West Garfield Park, and West Pullman. So these are the community areas that we would like to target. That doesn't mean if you have a different community area, you can't apply. No, of course not. But these are the areas that will have specific priority. Next slide, please. We're back to Mark with this next slide, I believe, program requirements.
That's correct. All right. So these are definitely outlined in the RFP, but we wanted to highlight them here as they may be a little bit new for our delegates. And so for the programs, we want to make sure respondents can execute on the following services in their application. We really want to focus on career navigation services and making sure that navigators are the primary contact for participants. This can start at outreach, and navigators help facilitate connections to other workforce and supportive services. And so we see career navigators as those who have insight into the workforce ecosystem. They are leading the assessments that happen with individuals to identify the appropriate resources that they should be connected to, and then also helping to make those actual connections. And so keeping in mind that the need for someone to actually guide participants through the process, especially when we're thinking about the most vulnerable residents in our communities. Many times they are unfamiliar with the system and that there is a workforce system. And so we see career navigators as those persons within organizations who have that insider information and are culturally competent, trauma-informed, and use an equity lens to make sure that they're connecting people to the appropriate resources. We want to make sure respondents have a comprehensive program orientation, so they're communicating what it takes to get to the next steps in their program process. So many times participants, they feel blindsided by all the details and the rigors of a particular delegate's programs. And so we want to make sure that that's being communicated on the front end in a comprehensive way, so that people understand what the intake process is, what the assessment process is, and how those aspects inform the rest of the work. And so we want to see that agencies are implementing and creating individual employment plans for participants, and they're also using assessment tools to identify where a participant is strong and where are some areas that they need support. And so using this information, the career navigator can develop that plan and help guide along with the participant, and then be guided through that process. We also want to be sure delegates have follow-up and retention services. So it's not just about starting the job, but staying on that job, and then providing that ongoing coaching and case management and follow-up post-employment to ensure retention and career advancement. Next slide. Thank you. We also want to take a look at the job readiness training. This includes activities such as job application completion, mock interviewing, resume development, whatever that looks like for your organization. We want you to outline that for us. And we want you to at least have the capacity to place a minimum of 20 participants per year. Outreach and recruitment. Respondents must have well-targeted community outreach and recruitment strategies that engage residents from our priority populations and communities enrolling them into not just the EPP, but all of our programs. We also want to see what the permanent employment placement services are. How are you connecting candidates to employment opportunities? How are you connecting them to other opportunities within the larger workforce ecosystem we mentioned? Also, how are you engaging employers and communicating with them about what's available and how working with your organization and hiring your participants can benefit their company and also put them in line for different tax credits. Finally, we want to take a look at the participant feedback tools. Just like our RFP process has hopefully improved based on the feedback we received from our applicants as well as our readers, we also want to think about making sure that we're collecting and analyzing feedback from our participants. Next slide. Pass it over to Juan.
Yes, thanks, Mark. So now we're going to take a deeper dive into our program models. And so we're going to look at our goals and our outcomes. Our first program model is our Community Reentry Support Center. We are very proud of our Community Reentry Support Center. Chicago was one of the first large cities in the nation to focus on returning citizens. So we are champions in that cause to help everybody because if the city that works should work for everybody. So this RFP seeks to stabilize residents who are transitioning from the Illinois Department of Correction, IDOC, Cook County Jail, or just people with backgrounds. The workforce program seeks to provide them with a central location where they can receive navigation, so reentry navigation services as needed, information about local reentry resources, referrals to support services that would enhance their well-being and empower them to successfully complete their probation, parole, and or electronic monitoring requirements. So we look very strong at applicants in these areas. Next slide. So our goals. So we're going to talk about our goals and then our outcomes. So the goal of the Reentry Support Center is to foster the successful reentry of returning residents into communities by providing them with reentry navigation services. And again, this navigation services is new. We embedded that. Mark spent a great deal talking about this. So this is new to our program models, a great asset to it and a resource. So the reentry navigation services that will help them access the tools and resources they need to thrive. These services will include, but are not limited to, linkages to available housing, workforce services, substance use and mental health counseling. We can refer to legal support for sealing and expungement of criminal records. We have mentoring, coaching, and access to support groups, education and training resources. We just got off the phone with Malcolm X. And so we know a job is what everybody's looking for, but you can earn more money with some more education. So we have linkages that way as well to our city colleges. Services, some of the other goals are services may be provided directly by the agency through existing partnerships with community-based organizations. The priority will be given to respondents that demonstrate usage of promising evidence-based practices that have emerged from the existing research on reentry. Next slide. Some of our requirements. So the requirements here, our respondents must be able to execute the following services in their application. So you have to be a call center. So the call center will serve as a central clearinghouse. You have to have a dedicated line, and you have to have information and services available to individuals returning home. And the community support center's phone number will be widely marketed throughout the city. We expect you to do a lot of marketing, putting flyers out, working with your aldermen, communities, beat officers, and things of that nature, clergy, and correctional facilities, similar to dialing 311. So we want to have that. It's like if everybody was in an emergency, the first person you call 311. So when people, when individuals are coming home or out and been out and just looking for resources, we just want to have that designated number where individuals can call. Again, returning residents will be able to call this number for information about local reentry services available in their neighborhoods. Applicants will be required to have the ability to respond in a timely manner to requests from the public about services available via phone, email, or in person. The reentry navigation and support services. This is crucial. Delegates will hire reentry navigators. So we're looking for people that have lived experience to be the primary contact for returning citizens and residents on probation, parole, and or electronic monitoring. Starting at outreach and will facilitate connections to resources, utilizing a strong community-based network of services. Navigators will ensure that participants are served in a culturally competent, trauma-informed manner to help them define their goals and co-create a plan to achieve them. So we just don't want to tell them where to go. We want to help them navigate that direction. And navigators should be active problem solvers in partnership with participants to help them address their barriers to advancement without judgment, and should encourage their self-esteem. Reentry navigators will need to use a trauma-informed rehabilitative approach with their clients through the use of pro-social communication skills, positive reinforcement, and community support. So again, we want to highlight that. We want people that have individuals with lived experience to help individuals help themselves. In addition to fielding calls and requests from the community reentry support centers number, agencies should anticipate providing reentry navigation services to a subset of participants who are on probation and parole and or electronic monitoring per year, and develop a budget accordingly. We know you have a clearinghouse and calls are going to come in, but we want to have a subset of those that you directly help and navigate that process to become productive citizens. Next slide. So the goals and outcomes. So what we want to track is the number and type of incoming calls that come into the clearinghouse. We want to know, we want to take a deeper dive into what those calls are and what the acts are. So is it education? Is it legal? Is it family reunification? Is it education? Is it employment? And so we want to track that. So that's going to be our outcomes that we want to look at. We want to look at the number of residents that call that's on probation, parole, or electronic monitoring. We need to have that. And so we want to complete a risk assessment. We want to complete a basic skills and career assessment. We want to receive a referral for health screening, receive a referral for housing. They can be referred to get state IDs and education and job training. Some of the other outcomes are the number of participants who successfully complete parole, probation, and electronic. So we'd like to say our North Star is the goal is to complete parole. We know individuals are on parole for about 3 years. We want to help individuals meet that benchmark and try to cut the recidivism rate down. It says within 3 years, individuals go back to prison. We want to cut that out. And so then we can do this by tracking it and then helping them navigating that. So we want to actually, the other outcomes are the number of participants who become employed in jobs. We want to track that with jobs at or above minimum wage. And we want to track the number of participants that enroll in education and or job training programs. It's very critical. Next slide. And Alan, I believe, is going to talk more about our other program model. Alan?
Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you, Juan. Some great information there regarding reentry centers. Okay, I am going to address two more of our program models. I'm going to start with the Employment Prep and Placement Program. Also, I want to tell you to make a notation of looking at page 16 again, because many of the things that Mark had mentioned regarding program requirements will also be a component of all of the program models. So let's get started with the Employment Prep Program. It's the goal of, go back, Mark, excuse me, Tom, there you go. The goal of the EPP program is to connect Chicago's most vulnerable residents to career navigation and support services, help them identify and overcome their barriers and challenges to employment, and prepare them for full-time permanent job opportunities with wages at or above Chicago's minimum wage. And as I said on page 16 that Mark had addressed, the first bullet point was talking about job readiness training and all the great things that are included, the great activities in a job readiness JRT program. Basically, that's what the EPP model is. Okay, Tom, you can go to the next slide. So we want to talk about the goals of EPP, and DFSS is seeking to fund career navigation, supportive services, and targeting low-income individuals who are at risk of homelessness, residents whose limited English proficiency, and returning citizens. Once again, those are our target populations. Just wanted to plug in that, of course, returning citizens, that means ex-offenders and people that have had involvement with the criminal justice system. So we hope to seek partners with community-based organizations that have expertise in creating pathways to meaningful careers for these target population individuals. Also have experience serving vulnerable residents successfully with favorable performance outcomes, and currently funded workforce programming options for vulnerable residents in the city of Chicago. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, performance goals and outcomes for the employment prep program. As Juan was saying, we want to track various goals and outcomes, and we have a list of metrics here, and we're not just tracking them just because. Certainly we want to analyze all these goals and outcomes, but we are getting requests from the mayor's office to provide them with information about the various goals and outcomes that we have. And of course, our executive team here at DFSS is always asking, how are we doing in various categories? So just continuing down the list, some of these are pretty important and obvious. So we want to track the number of participants enrolled, the number and percentage of enrolled participants who belong to one of DFSS's priority populations. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are targeting a 75% in this particular category. And of course, we want to know the percentage and number of participants completing the program, JRT, Job Readiness Training. Also, the number and percentage of participants receiving career navigation, coaching, and supportive services, which, as Mark and Juan have already discussed, is kind of a new phase of the operation and of this RFP. We want to track the number of participants who have created IEPs. That stands for Individualized Employment Plan or Individualized Employment Program. We want to track the number of referrals for industry-specific post-secondary or vocational training. So if somebody is moving from an employment prep program to something more specific in a definite career path, we want to know that. And we want to know the number and type of referrals made for supportive services. And the number of participant referrals for job interviews. And now outcomes. We want to know the percentage and number of participants who enter unsubsidized employment. We want to know the percentage and number of participants who remain in unsubsidized employment for 30, 90, and 180 days. Now, as Juan discussed, we're returning to the performance-based payment points. So 30-day retention will definitely be a benchmark and a payment point. We also want to know the 90-day retention number and the 180-day retention number. We're very hopeful that individuals will remain in jobs for the 90 and the 180 days and longer. We also want to know the percentage and number of participants placed that earn wages equal to or above Chicago's minimum wage. We want to know the percentage and number of participants placed with health care, fringe benefits and wages at or above Chicago's minimum wage. And we mentioned health care. We single out healthcare here because this is huge right now. This is post-COVID, post-pandemic. It's really a key industry area that there are many, many openings. So we want to track that a little bit more specifically. And then finally, we want to know the percentage and number of participants who enroll in industry-specific post-secondary or vocational training. Okay.
Quick
Yeah,
point
go
of
ahead.
clarification. Yeah, I'm sorry. So we're looking at those individuals that get hired and their job is offering health care for that outcome.
Yeah.
Not necessarily within the industry, but yes.
Gotcha. Okay, Tom, next slide. Okay, we want to now focus on the next program model, which is industry-specific training. And the goal of this particular program model is to connect Chicago's most vulnerable residents to industry-specific job training. And we want to integrate that with career navigation and support services to help them identify and overcome those barriers and challenges to employment and prepare them for full-time permanent job opportunities with wages at or above Chicago's minimum wage. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so DFSS has identified the following industry sectors as priorities. Healthcare, human services, TDL, transportation, distribution, logistics, manufacturing, and IT. Now, those are the top industry sectors, but also other industry sectors such as hospitality, which includes tourism, retail, and culinary arts, may be considered. And here's the key thing: we would like, if you are applying for one of the industry-specific areas, we want you to demonstrate that the industry has a need for this particular type of skilled worker. The reason I say that is because there has been a lot of discussion on what industries or what jobs are not in high demand due to the pandemic and COVID-related issues. But in 2022, we're very hopeful that things will return to what they used to be. That certainly remains to be seen. But if you have employers that can commit to hiring people down the road, please demonstrate that in your proposal. So moving to the bottom of the slide, we want to partner with CBOs that have expertise in creating pathways to meaningful careers for the target population, experience serving the vulnerable residents successfully with favorable performance outcomes, and currently funded workforce programming options for vulnerable residents in the city of Chicago. Okay, so let's jump over to the performance goals. Thank you. So a lot of the metrics that I had mentioned earlier, now these are more specific to the industry-specific model. So we want to know the number of participants enrolled, the number of participants who have completed industry-specific training. And this is something that we want to stress also. We want to know who has received certification or credentials. So this is very important. We need to know that also. And we also want to know those enrolled participants who belong to one of the priority populations. We also want to know the number and percentage of participants who are receiving career navigation, coaching, and support services. Once again, this is one of our new areas, and we want to have a focus on that moving forward. And then we also want to know the number and type of referrals made for supportive services. And of course, number of participants, referrals for job interviews. We want to know all of that great information. Our outcomes. Similar to what we talked about in the employment prep model, we want to know the percentage and number of participants who enter unsubsidized employment. We want to know the percentage and number of participants who remain in unsubsidized employment for the 30 90 and 100-day retention benchmarks. And once again, there's that 30-day retention, which is a payment point for 2022. We also want to know the percentage and number of participants who receive a base hourly pay equal to or at above Chicago's minimum wage. And we want to know the percentage and number of participants that enroll in post-secondary or vocational training and move further on in their career path. So that is the description of the industry specific. I'd like to turn it back over to Juan, who will now talk about another one of our program models. Tom, you can move to the next slide. Thank you.
All right, Alan, thanks. I just want to pause and just recap our 4 program models that we were talking about. We started off with our reentry, our community reentry support centers, which focuses on returning citizens and having them find resources with our community navigator. Then we went on to talk about our employment preparation and placement, which is our most funded program model. And that's generally just our job readiness training for people that don't really know which way to go as far as career, but they need some job readiness training. We then talked about our industry specific training, where we have individuals that pretty much know where they want to go. If it's in food service, if it's in hospitality, if it's in some of our trades, they know what discipline they want to seek. And so we assist them with that. And last but not least is our transitional jobs program. I think it's one of our better programs, especially in this time of economic recovery and with COVID and people not having jobs. And we know that the job market is going to be booming and individuals are going to be looking to get back to work. So this is our transitional jobs program model. The goal of the transitional job program model is to support and help accelerate the city of Chicago's equitable recovery from the economic effects of COVID-19. We know COVID has had a devastating effect on the job market. And so having some subsidized ways to help employers onboard new people is paramount. And so our TJ program accomplishes this by connecting Chicago's most vulnerable residents to career navigation, support services, and temporary subsidized jobs integrated with work-based learning experiences that will stabilize participants with a source of income. We know individuals need income. It does it by helping them identify and overcome their barriers to employment. Some have little to no work experience. So this is an opportunity for people to actually fail on a job and learn to see if this is what they want. And we assist that with helping employers onboard, a part of that cost as far as payroll. And we prepare them for full-time permanent job opportunities with wages at or above the city's minimum wage. Next slide, Tom. So what are our goals? What do we seek to accomplish here? So our goals for the Transitional Jobs Program is to utilize the ABC approach. The ABC approach uses the career progress method. And so any job, better job, and then ultimately putting people on a career trajectory. So the transitional jobs integrated with work-based learning opportunities to any job allows participants to demonstrate essential on-the-job competencies that prepare them for additional responsibilities that would align with higher pay and continue learning opportunities, which is better jobs. And finally, persons with interests and aptitudes move into higher demand fields that help them grow local economies, and that puts them onto the career progress or trajectory. DFSS seeks to partner with community-based organizations like yourself that have expertise in creating pathways to meaningful careers for vulnerable Chicagoans. We look to partner with people that have experience serving vulnerable residents successfully with strong performance outcomes. We look to partner with people that have experience creating and providing temporary subsidized jobs integrated with work-based learning opportunities for our most vulnerable residents. So we're looking for people that have experience partnering with employers that will take on some of our TJ participants with the subsidies. And we look to partner with currently funded workforce programming options for vulnerable residents in the city of Chicago. Tom? So what about our requirements? Program requirements for the transitional jobs. The transitional jobs utilizes, again, an ABC approach. Navigators will connect low-income residents. Again, we say navigators, that's going to be part of this. We'll connect low-income community residents with temporary subsidized jobs that are integrated with well-structured work-based learning opportunities designed to help participants develop a work history. And so again, we know people have little to no work experience, so this gives them that opportunity to have that, to put it on their resume. And hopefully that assignment that they are going temporarily will lead to full-time employment. That's the goal. And to learn new skills that make them more attractive to potential employers, and or to demonstrate essential on-the-job competencies that prepare them for higher paying jobs with more responsibilities and continued learning opportunities. Another requirements are transitional job assignments should last up to 12 weeks, 25 hours a week at $13.50 an hour, or at the time of the RFP, the city minimum wage. If it goes up, we want to stay in line with what the current city minimum wage is. So jobs may be developed internally by delegate agencies. If you have I forgot. I'm sorry. But jobs may be developed internally by delegate agencies and or through formalized employer partnerships, and must be thoughtfully integrated with opportunities for participants to develop the basic skills, which is reading, writing, number skills, and computer skills, and experience needed to be successful in the workplace. Transitional jobs must include worksite agreement policies that are clearly explained to employer partners and trainees. Delegates and or their employer partners will be responsible for onboarding, tracking trainees' hours worked, and wage disbursements directly or through a third-party vendor. So we're looking for you to track that, work in tandem with employers, and have that in your response to us. Next slide, Tom. So what are we trying to track? So on performance outcomes, or our performance goals, what are we trying to track? We want to track the number of participants enrolled in the transitional jobs program. We want to track the number of participants to complete pre and post computer and basic skills assessments. We want to track the number of participants, the number and percentage of enrolled participants who begin subsidized job training integrated with work-based learning. We want to track the number and percentages of enrolled participants who belong to one or more of the priority populations. We want to track the number and type of referrals made for supportive services. We want to track the number of referrals for industry-specific, post-secondary, or vocational training. And we want to track the number and percentage of participants who successfully complete the transitional jobs program. Next slide. And what do we want to see from that? So from tracking all of that, we want to see outcomes. So our outcomes, what we hope to achieve is we want to see the percentage. We want to know the number of people who participated and who earned and who entered into our unsubsidized full-time employment. So the people that went through our program, we want to see the people that's unsubsidized. The first they were subsidized with a subsidy, and we want to know the number of the people who became employed without the subsidy. We want to see the percentage and number of participants who receive a base hourly pay equal to or above the city of Chicago minimum wage. We want to see the percentage and number of participants who remain in unsubsidized employment for 30, 90, and 180 days. What we don't want to see is individuals just dropped off at employers' doorstep. So we know you can get the job and work with employers, but then it's follow-up. So again, these are individuals that had little to no work experience. So we want to track retention. Again, this is going to be a performance-based contract. You usually get paid after that first 30-day retention, but you have to follow and look at whatever supports the individuals are looking for. We know if an individual stays longer at the job, they stay longer at the job. So definitely tracking that and having your support with that to 180 days is one of the requirements that we look to see. What are some other outcomes? Percentage and number of participants who improve their computer skills during their transitional jobs. We want to see the percentage and number of participants who improve their math and or reading skills. And finally, we want to see the percentage and number of participants who enroll in industry-specific post-secondary or vocational training after completing their TJ program. Next slide, Tom. I believe this is back to Mark.
Yep. So yes, this is Julie's slide.
So this is Julia Talbot. I manage the RFP process for the department, and this is where I sort of start taking over. This is our transitional the selection timeline, so you just kind of know what are going on. The pre-proposal webinar, that's happening today and tomorrow. Today's is the 19th. The RFP is going to be released, and when I say RFP, the application questions are going to go live on the city's e-procurement website on May 3rd at 9:00 a.m. All of the applications are due on June 17th at 12 noon. And for those of you, if you're new to the e-procurement world, we do not do extensions. We do not, the only way we do not accept late applications. The only way you can get your application read is to submit it prior to the June 17th, 12 noon due date. If you are late, your application will not be accepted, and the only way that we can accept it is to reissue the entire RFP. Ask everybody who did submit their applications on time to resubmit, and we really do not want to do that. It's not fair. The contracts will all start on January 1st of 2022. Could we go to the next slide? So I'm going to just go over a couple of little tips. Usually I go over something longer, but right now, because it's CDGA and we have so many applications coming out, OBM, who manages the CDGA application process for us, they have two webinars. One was this morning from 10 to 12, and one will be on Wednesday, the 21st from 10 to 12. Those are Zoom webinars. You don't need to register. You can just pop the link, and the links are posted on our DFSS CDGA website. I have the link down here. They're on the OBM website. They're fairly easy to find, and I highly, highly, highly encourage people, especially if you are new to the system or just want a refresher, to attend one of those webinars. So as I said, late applications will not be accepted. As part of the equity work that Mark and Juan and Alan kind of referenced, we're changing the way we do questions and answers a little bit differently this year. So we're asking that everybody submit their questions through the e-procurement system. I'm going to go through how to do that. Also, if you call your program person, you can ask them the question, they will take it down, but they cannot answer you. They are going to write the question down, and then we're going to periodically release the frequently asked questions and amendments and put them on the DFSS CDGA website, so you can check out there. We're also going to be posting the links to the webinars on YouTube. These are recorded, and so if you want to go back and do the, relive the glory of going to this webinar, it's up on YouTube. You'll see the screen, it's the screen like you see here now, and you'll hear us talking. It's a great way, it's a great way to kind of go back and re-listen to stuff that maybe you didn't catch the first time, or just clarify things. If you have questions about program design or about e-procurement, though, what we're going to talk about now is how to get an answer. E-procurement stuff is going to go to the customer support at citychicago.org, or you can use the e-procurement hotline, which is awesome, 312-744-HELP. The hotline operates only during business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. DFSS at this point has like 23 different RFPs out on the street, but we're only one of like 5. We're one of 5 departments that also has RFPs. So there's a busy time of year. My mantra for everything RFP is always save early, submit often, or save often, submit early rather. And for this particular pool of applications, that is very, very important. In the 4 years I've been working with the e-procurement system, the system does not crash, but your ability to get answers, to access information, is going to be a little bit more crowded than it usually is. So I really, really strongly suggest people don't leave stuff to the last minute, because there might be a line for you to get an answer. It's not, you know, you can call me, and my phone number and email are at the end of the application of this webinar. You can call the you can call the hotline, you can call customer support. If you have those programmatic questions, you want to get them in early so that we can give you answers via the e-procurement system, the amendments, putting the stuff up on the DFSS website. But you want to give yourself enough time to do a nice application and submit it by the time that the deadline, you know, comes due. So I really suggest you look at this DFSS CDGA website. We put it up just for this application. You know, these applications. It's beautiful. It has tons of information on it. It has the links to those, the TA session I was telling you about has links to like everything. You know, if everything in life was so straightforward and simple. The training materials, if you're a person that can learn through video or step-by-step sort of screenshots, there's a ton of training materials on the OBM website for online training. Highly recommend those. You can always give me a call if you just have an email if you have an e-procurement kind of question, and I can help you with that if you can't get through the hotline. I try to turn everything around like within a day. Sometimes the hotline is a little bit longer because they get bogged down. And as I said, we're all going to be really busy for the next, you know, 2 months. Let's go to the next slide. So now I'm going to talk about how to ask a question in e-procurement. Remember, the reason that you want to do this is because we would really like to get all of our questions asked through the e-procurement system this time. So if you don't have an iSupplier account, it's time to get one. You should contact the e-procurement hotline to help you get set up with that. And then to begin the process, so you did that. And magically, you're all set up, ready to go. So to begin the process of submitting a question via e-procurement, you're going to need to log into your iSupplier account and find the RFP you want to ask the question about. So all of the RFPs, at least for DFSS, can be found at this website. It's the e-procurement website. You can Google e-procurement on the city's website and get there eventually. Let's go to the next slide, and I can show you a screenshot of what you'd be looking at. So when you get here, this is where you want to be to start the login process. You can see that nice login button on the lower right-hand side. So you click on that, and you're going to go to the login screen, which is just fantastic, let me tell you. So let's go to the next slide. This is the login screen. You type in your username, you type in your password. You'll notice here, down here, it says login assistance below the login and cancel buttons. If you can't remember one of those things, hit login assistance. It works really quickly. I have not forgotten my username, but I've forgotten my password on this one a few times, and it's like, you know, 30 seconds and you're reset. It's not a problem. So you're going to type in your username, your password, you're going to hit login, and it will take you to this entry screen. So the next slide. So when you get to this entry screen, you're going to pull down on the Chicago online bidding. You're going to open those up. You're going to open up sourcing, and then you're going to go to the go to the sourcing homepage. You're going to click on the sourcing homepage, which will take you to the next slide or screen. And this is where you start to look for your RFP number. So or RFQ, as it says in the e-procurement environment. So you're going to go to the search open solicitations. You're going to click on number. So it's going to search for the number as opposed to the title or some of this other stuff. And then you're going to type in the RFQ number, and you're going to hit go. So let's go to the next slide. So you can see here are the RFQ numbers for the workforce development RFPs. I believe that we might have these. I will check it and see if we have all these numbers posted in a document on the DFSS website. If we don't, it's very easy for us to do so. You can ask me. You can, there's a million ways to get at these numbers, but it's a very helpful way to look them up. So let's go. So you have your, you're going to be. I want to do community reentry support centers. It's 7962. You're going to type it into that screen. You're going to hit go. It will pull up. Not this, but you'll get a screen that looks like this next slide. And so you've sort of opened it up. So now here you go on the right hand side, there's this actions box. If you open that up, there's something that says create quote. Create quote is actually what you would use to start an application. But you want to just ask a question. And so you would hit online discussions, and then you hit the go button right next to it. And that will take you into the ability to set up a message. Right here, you're just going to click on new message, and new message, when you click on that, it will take you to this next screen. And there you go. If you would type in your subject, type in the message. If you, for some reason, needed to add an attachment, you could at this point, and then you click send, and you are done. And we will see what you have to say. So that's just a very simple explanation of how to do a question in e-procurement. As I said before, our applications are due June 17th at 12 o'clock noon. I tell people to give themselves 30 to 60 minutes to do the submission process, because it's not just press send and whoosh, it's gone. Most of the time you're going to get some error messages that you're going to need to resolve. So don't leave this to the last minute. Just don't. You'll just be happier. We'll all be happier. We want to get as many applications as we can. We love reading applications. It's our life's work. We love hearing what people have to say and the kind of ideas and stuff that they bring to the table in terms of the services we can provide to some of Chicago's more disadvantaged populations. And so we're really, we really love seeing applications, and we can't read them if they're not in on time. So now we're going to go to the questions that we have. So this is the time. If you have questions, type them into that questions box, and we can just start working through these. So I'm seeing right outside a couple of people saying, will you be sending the PowerPoint presentations to the attendees after the sessions? No, we are not. We're going to post the webinar link to YouTube up on the DFSS CDGA website. Those will probably be available tomorrow, maybe the day after. It depends on, we're in the process of doing 5 webinars in 2 days, and so we're a little busy, but we're going to get that link up as quickly as possible. But no, we are not going to be sending out the PowerPoint presentations to attendees, I'm afraid. So let's just, so that's a little bit of housekeeping. Can agencies respond to more than one RFP? Yes, you can. We have 23 to choose from. I think, go for it. 20, it's a great number. So getting back to sort of the less housekeeping, more programmatic questions, do enrollees need to meet all of the characteristics of the profile, or just one or more of them? So that would be, I'm going to ask one of my awesome coworkers to unmute themselves and answer this question. Do enrollees need to meet all the characteristics of the profile, or just one or more of them? I think, Juan?
Yeah, so great question. So no, you don't have to meet all the characteristics. You can be one. So we have a couple of things that's going on here, right? We have eligibility, and then we have priority population that we're trying to target, right? So where we're trying to target is one of many of the vulnerable populations that we have. So, i.e., ESL, homeless, ex-offenders, right? And so if they meet one of those criteria, then that's fine. So you don't have to have all of those, but just we want to target that population. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah. So then it will be, how many community reentry support center will be funded? Excellent.
Great question. I guess I could take that one too, Julie.
There you go.
So right now we have 4. And so we have them geographically located throughout the city of Chicago, because we know that everybody don't go back to one community. So we like to, put resources where the need is great. And so we have on the south side. So what we will have is 4. So we have 4 now. And we want to continue with that, because one's serving the south side, one's serving the west side, one's serving the far south, and then we have one serving the north side. So it's definitely geographically located. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, then we go, will there be more than one call center?
That's duplicative of what I just mentioned. So the call center is the reentry center. So they encompass one. So they're one and the same.
Great. Here's a technical difficulty slide. When it got to slide 12 is EPP, so employment preparation and placement program milestone or line item. Can you maybe clarify that, Alan?
Yes, I can clarify that. The answer to that question is it's going to be performance-based, not line item. So in 2022, we are returning to the performance-based payment points, and I believe Juan discussed that particular slide during the webinar.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. How will the wages be subsidized during transitional jobs programs if it's based on a performance contract?
I can take that if you want, Juan and Mark. In the transitional jobs model, at the onset of the contract period or the budget submission, you need to allocate minimum 30% of your budget towards subsidized wages. Once you allocate 30% of your award, whatever that award amount is, then you will then have a new baseline for your contract. So the 30% is where the wages come from.
There you go. For transitional jobs programs, I expect training costs, which include transitional job wages, will happen shortly after a participant is enrolled. How will agencies be reimbursed for these wages? I anticipate that cost per enrollment target, 62% of contract award, will not be enough to cover the wages. Juan, unmute yourself.
Yeah, so again, I believe Alan spoke it up. So the subsidized wage portion would be, taken off to the top of your contract. So if you have a $100,000 contract, you can go as low as 30%, which would be $30,000. And then you will create your budget off of the $70,000 for all of the other metrics. So if it's whatever those other metrics, enrollments, placements, target pop, 90 days. So, but the subsidized portion will not affect the other part of that. So we take that off we account that off of the top of the award. And so it's its own unit and it's its own line and it has no bearing on the other metrics.
Okay, great. I am wondering how individuals with disabilities and or veterans are their own priority population, or do they also have to fit within the homeless, ESL, or returning resident categories? Awesome.
Well, it's not a specific target population as our three main bullet points, but we certainly want to serve veterans that are part of that target population, and we certainly want to serve folks with disabilities who may also be part of that target population. But technically, there's not a payment point just because you're a veteran. The payment points are, as Juan earlier described, enrollments and 30-day retention placements. So if those individuals are enrolled and placed, you will get payment for those metrics, for those benchmarks. Hope that answers that.
Okay, great. Are computer and basic skill assessments and outcomes required for all transitional jobs programs? Unmute, Juan.
Yes, they are.
Thank you. Is there increased funding for programs due to COVID? Mark, do you want to take that one?
Not necessarily due to COVID. Right now, we are operating with the same budgets that we had previously, pre-COVID. So there will not be an increase to the budgets because of COVID. Based on what we have available for funding, we will likely be assigning the same dollar amounts to each of the particular RFPs.
Okay. Yeah, I believe the RFP, the funding information is available in each of the program descriptions, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there you go. So what are the rules for co-enrollment with WIOA programs so clients can take advantage of vocational training? Okay, who wants to take that?
So we don't have a current agreement for dual enrollment. But individuals that have a DFSS grant also have WIOA grants. We know that. Some of the same delegates have, some of the same, have multiple funding. And so the funding can leverage what the cost of that program might be. And if that funding is WIOA, then that's perfectly fine. So if a person is in industry specific and he's getting the basic upfront from us, and they're subsidized, they're leveraging other funds, that's allowable, right? And so because again, I don't think our total cost is going to cover the agency's overall cost that's going to, be needed to run that program. So we always see leverage funds. So I see that as being leverage funds.
Okay, so just to clarify, these programs will allow for the co-enrollment. So you can be enrolled in a WIOA program and then you can be enrolled with one of these ones.
I think that needs further discussion.
I wouldn't use the word co-enrollment. So yes, it does need further discussion.
Okay. Well, then we will further discuss and get you a more articulated answer, Ms. Kaminska, when we post the answers to these questions in our FAQs. So here, how are grantees expected to demonstrate improved math and/or reading skills? How are grantees expected to demonstrate improved computer literacy skills?
Julie, I think I could briefly address that. Maybe Mark or Juan could add a little more. One example of assessments is the TABE test. The TABE test measures your ability in those categories that were just asked, basic math and reading and English. There is a follow-up testing in TABE to determine any improvement in any of those particular categories. And also I might add that there are many employers who require a certain grade level when applying for a particular position, such as 8th grade reading level or 8th grade math level. So if the individual does not possess that level, then they need to have remediation to improve so they can apply for that particular employer. I hope that answered some of that question. I don't know if Mark or Juan has anything additional.
Yes, that's correct. Using those types of assessments is a great way to show or demonstrate improved reading, math, or computer literacy skills.
Great. Can you elaborate on the increased focus on career navigators?
So one of the things that we see out in the landscape is resources, but not necessarily human beings connecting to those resources. Many times people will see an advertisement about a particular opportunity, but not know how to connect to it. We anticipate that career navigators, reentry navigators, these are things that we're seeing in different programs and across the city of Chicago as well as the country. What we're learning is that when human beings, individuals who have that knowledge and that expertise are able to make connections to other individuals who are seeking that information, that's how the process gets started. It's putting a person, creating a middle person who can actually connect individuals to the appropriate resource. So we really want to just pay attention to that part of the process. Many people who can who have the ability to drive themselves to different resources and not necessarily driving a vehicle, but they're self-motivated to get to where it is that they're trying to go in their career. They wouldn't necessarily need a navigator. But then there's others who have been, for example, so traumatized or so distracted or so stressed out by life that they're not able to gather themselves in a way that's going to help them understand what the resources are available, what are the steps that they need to take to get to where they want to be in their career. So when thinking about the most vulnerable in our community, we recognize that we believe that having an individual that's doing outreach, that's connecting people in a trauma-informed way, that's culturally competent, that understands how to communicate what's available to those that are in need is critical in order to make sure that resources get utilized effectively and efficiently, and to make sure that individuals are getting what they need at the right time. So we recognize also that a transitional job is not appropriate for everyone. The industry-specific program is not appropriate for everyone. We're relying on those career navigators to help make those decisions in partnership with the participant so that they can understand what's the best path for them, and then start that process to get where they want to go for that any job, for that better job, and then ultimately their career.
Great, thank you. Okay, so if multiple agencies offer services to a client because of a diverse need, will both receive credits for the placement? Oh, good question.
The answer is no. No, I mean it's per agency. So if the agency provided that service, but he had help from another agency, you can't have two placements. And so how do you split that? And so the payment point is based per person, per agency, and any assistance with that is goodwill or on some other contract. But the answer is no.
Okay, so no. One of the outcomes of the ISTP program, and that's the industry-specific program, is pursuing additional vocational training. Is this in addition to the training that organizations are offering? So, Alan, I guess this is.
Is this in addition to training offered? I would say yes, it is in addition. Keep in mind our payment points once again. Enrollment, obviously, they would get paid for the enrollment of that person who participated in that particular industry-specific training, whether it be something in hospitality or healthcare or manufacturing. If that individual during the program year does not get placed in a job and retained for 30 days, well, then we can't pay them. But it certainly is, it is great metrics for us to have that they moved on to another training phase in their goal of this particular career path. So I hope that answers the question. Yes, we definitely want people to continue a career path, but the second payment point is 30-day retention placement.
Great. So here's a great question is, do you base funding on agency size capacity, or how is that determined? How do you ever get an increase in funding? And actually, I would like, if Brenda Sanders is still here, if you could clarify an increase in funding in terms of the per participant amount, or if you meant like you want to serve more people. But can one of the team talk about, do you base funding on agency size capacity, and how is that determined?
So the answer is yes, we do base it on size and capacity. We want to make sure that an organization has the appropriate staff, systems, and processes in place to do what it is that they propose. Regarding the question, I'm assuming it's how does an agency get more funding overall as opposed to just a particular payment point. And if that's the case, this is how an agency gets more funding. Through the RFP process, you make your case and you make your case for, if you already have existing funding, you make your case for more funding. And you use the metrics in your responses to the question to demonstrate that you have the capacity for more clients. You have the employment opportunities, you have the training in place, you have all these other aspects in place so that you can do that work. Another factor has to do with service to the priority communities and service to the priority populations. So just being able to communicate those things within your RFP, and then also just being clear about your capacity to do that work as outlined in the questions is how you become in line for more funding. And then that also is contingent upon what's happening with our overall budget.
Great, thank you. Here we go. If awarded employment prep and placement program and transitional job program, can candidates from employment prep and placement also be put in transitional jobs? Is it the same for industry specific jobs? Can those clients go into transitional jobs? So.
No, I don't think that's appropriate.
No.
I mean, no, I would say no. I mean, if you're in industry specific and you're getting trained in that particular area and then you hop into another program model, no, that's not what this is all about. We don't want people hopping from one program to the next. We'd like them to be successful in reaching their goals and the agency's goals in a particular program model.
And then this is, what about digital skills? What is the preferred assessment tool? So this is just following up on what you were saying, Alan, about the TABE.
Right.
So is there a test for that? And also, do we accept the CASS test for reading and math as pre and post testing?
Yeah, CASS is yes on that. And I don't know the particular assessment tool for technology, but yes, they are available to determine, your competency level in technology, whether it be beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But I don't know the particular tool at this moment. We could find out about that, unless Mark or Juan knows the answer to that.
So that's something that we will follow up
Yeah.
on and give a good answer, Ms. Summers, in the FAQs when we post them to the DFSS CDGA site. Does an agency have to be a nonprofit? Technically, no. We do have some for-profit entities, but you're not allowed to take a profit line. That would be that. So you have to be able to, you can't demonstrate profit even if you are a for-profit entity. But I believe that you, as a for-profit, you would be able to apply and submit for these RFPs. This funding is set up generally we get more nonprofits as our applicants than not, though. So that is the last question I have, but let's see, there's still quite a number of you listening in. Let's see, why don't we call out if there's people have more questions before we end this webinar. Just so that you know, the next steps are that we will be working on providing written answers to these questions, which will be posted on the DFSS website and hopefully released when the applications all go live on May 3rd at 9 o'clock. The FAQs from this webinar will be included as an attachment. And yeah, and if you have other questions, you can type them into, you can't type them into procurement yet, but you can certainly contact myself, Juan, or Mark, or Alan, and they will write your questions down, and we will answer them as the new process that I described. So let's see if anybody has any other questions. Okay. Well, with that being said, if there are no other questions, I'd like to just thank all of you for attending this webinar. We're really looking forward to reading all of your applications. I'd like to extend a debt of gratitude to my fantastic co-workers in the workforce division who really make these programs come alive. And I think, you know, we're able to really kind of link the programs to what the department itself stands for and is doing these days. I, for one, am happy and excited to hear about the updates that we've kind of been working on, and I hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia and Tom, and thank you, agencies, for participating in this webinar. Great to hear your great questions.
Yes. We can't wait to read your applications.